you ever been told to just face your fears in order to overcome your social anxiety? Well, it's not as simple as it sounds. I did it myself and it was extremely hard to do, and so have many of my clients. And here's my controversial stance on it. It's an outdated approach at best. And in this video, I'm gonna describe the 4 major challenges with facing your fears and what you can do instead that is both more gentle, more effective, and can help you to overcome your social anxiety completely. Well, first, let me take you back to when I actually started doing my scary and awkward exposures. And this was almost 20 years ago. I had learned that I could change my inner game, my inner psychology. I could go from anxious to confident if I would just do affirmations, visualizations, change my thoughts, and if I would go force myself to face my fears. So I was making this whole plan of what I was going to do and where I was going to do it, and I kept altering it and making it better and basically just procrastinating on it because it was so scary to me. The thought of it gave me huge anxiety. I was imagining that I would go to the city and I would ask people for opinions and they would find me weird and they would question me and confront me and maybe laugh at me or mock me, and I'd be the center of attention and they would then see me anxious and see me blush. And just the thought of that would freak me out. Now, eventually I had set myself a date that I was going to do it, and I was going to do it in Amsterdam. I'm from the Netherlands, from a tiny little village, because I'm like, in Amsterdam I don't know anyone, and if it goes wrong, then at least nobody knows me. Buy a ticket to go to the train. I didn't sleep properly the day before because I was so anxious thinking about what I was going to do that day. And then when I made it to Amsterdam, I actually couldn't do it. It was just too scary. Just at the moment that I would do it, I would be filled with fear, would feel in my chest and my throat, and I'm like, I gotta plan more. And I went back home. And then going home, I'm talking to myself, I'm so pathetic, I'm such a loser, I can't even ask people for their opinion, what's wrong with me, I'm so weak, etc. Now, at some point, I even hired a dating coach to come over to Amsterdam to show me how to do it. And I even paid like 17, 18-year-old kid, and I'm paying $2,000 to fly this guy over. And he indeed walked up to a group of girls, starts an opinion, everything's fine. And I'm like, wow, that's possible. And then he pushed me into groups and had me do it, and did that for all of Friday, all of Saturday, or all of Saturday and all of Sunday. And then I indeed felt a lot more confident because I realized, oh, I'm not going to die. And I actually got some favorable responses as well. So that boosted my confidence. But then the guy left, and a couple of days later, I couldn't do that by myself. And that confidence all drained out again. Then I was going to force myself to do it by myself. Chickened out many times, and eventually I'm going to do it. And I pretended that I was on the phone with my friend. Then I started a conversation, tried to start a conversation rather, at a train station with a girl. And I felt that all the eyes were on me. I started to blush, I started to sweat. It was extremely awkward. And then I walked away from that situation like, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to talk to any stranger or any girl. This is a complete disaster. And I was then afraid that I was going to run into that girl or the people that were there again, just worrying about it, just like a drama. But even though this was so painful and so difficult, I kept hearing everywhere, the only way to overcome your fear is to go through it. Face your fear and the death of fear is certain. Feel the fear and do it anyway, right? And I had my whole room full of quotes to inspire me to face my fears like a true warrior, right? And so I stepped it up a notch. So I contacted my friend, and he was going to hold me accountable when I was going to face my fears in Amsterdam. And I had heard from some psychotherapists on some dating program that you could become rejection proof if you purposely get yourself rejected. So I went to the city and I told my friend, okay, I'm going to walk up to 20 girls and I'm going to say, hey, you like me, give me your number, which I did. Well, you don't want to believe how scared I was doing that. I couldn't sleep days in advance because I'd already made that commitment and told him that I was going to do that. He could point out the girls. I'll tell you the whole story another time, but the conclusion of the story is by the end, I felt very confident. And a couple of days later, that confidence was gone. So I'm like, all right, I need to do public speaking because I'm really scared of public speaking. So I joined Toastmasters, prepared for a speech, did the speech, was super scary in anticipation of it, worrying about it. Then I did the speech and killed it and felt confident afterwards. And then my confidence leaked out again. And then I'm like, all right, what I need to do is I need to face my worst fear, right? They say face your worst fear and then the death of fear is certain. So I was really scared of embarrassing myself publicly, right? And so bought the brightest red lipstick, put lipstick on my lips, smeared it around my eyes, went to a city that I don't live, and looking like a freak, went into the city starting conversations with people. And people would be like looking at me, laughing at me, pointing at me, ridiculing me, asking me questions, saying, hey, what's going on? And I'm just pretending that everything's fine. It was horrible for the first 45 minutes. And then the fear decreased significantly and I started to be bothered by it a lot less. And afterwards, I'm like, oh, great, I don't care what people think of me anymore. I'm free, right? Wrong. Couple of days later, again, all of that fear and anxiety returned. So conclusion, I did boost my confidence every time that I faced my fears, but the relief was temporary. When I stopped facing my fears, the fear would simply come back. That confidence would be gone and I'd be just as anxious. Well, I'd be a little less anxious overall, I guess. Maybe like 20% because I realized that I didn't die. That was helpful, but the fear still remained. And what I've since discovered after overcoming my own severe social anxiety disorder and 14 years of coaching socially anxious clients is that this is actually very common. In fact, there are 4 main problems with exposure therapy that nobody ever talks about. 1, for a ton of people, facing your fears is too scary. And so they end up feeling hopeless because they're told, this is the solution that you need. And they're like, well, I can't do it. So that means I'll have to live with my social anxiety for the rest of my life. 2, many who don't face their fears end up beating themselves up even more because they're told that they need to face their fears. They feel that they can't do it or they can't keep up with it. And as a result, they then judge themselves to be weak or broken, or there's something wrong with me, or I'm a loser or pathetic. And that exacerbates their social anxiety. 3, for some, facing your fears can actually make your social anxiety worse. Now, if you have a history of trauma, then exposing yourself to certain social situations can actually trigger those traumatic memories and their associated feelings. In fact, lots of studies have linked social anxiety to trauma. And in my personal experience, that is often the case. And when you then force yourself to face your fears, instead of it desensitizing you, it can re-traumatize you, amplifying the fear that you have. 4, for many people, continuously facing their fears actually doesn't fully resolve their social anxiety. And their relief is just temporary. And they actually have to keep doing it all the time in order to keep anxiety at bay. But not only is that very overwhelming to have to do that all the time, it's also highly impractical. Oh, I've got an important job interview this afternoon. Okay, I'm first gonna go high five 20 strangers, then I'm gonna plank in public, and then I'll call out all the bus stops along the way. I mean, what kind of a life is that? So because of these limitations, I argue that the feel the fear and do it anyway approach is outdated at best. I mean, if it works for you, great, do it, right? It actually does work to some degree for some people, but it also doesn't work for a lot of people. And for a lot of people, it is too hard to do and leads to temporary results. Now, the good news is that there are modern therapeutic techniques available these days that are both more gentle and more effective, such as EFT tapping. EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques, and it combines some of the best of traditional psychology like imaginal exposure, and cognitive restructuring, and it combines that with the stimulation of certain acupressure points on the body. Now, I know it looks really odd, and your skepticism probably goes through the roof when you see someone doing this if you've never heard of it. But actually, what it does is it begins to process stuck emotions like shame, insecurity, fear, and it shifts stuck limiting beliefs like I'm not good enough or people don't like me. And it's proven to be very effective for both PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder, and anxiety. Now, EFT has over 100 scientific studies backing up its effectiveness, and these are published in prestigious peer-reviewed medical journals. And it meets the criteria for evidence-based treatment as set by the APA, the American Psychological Association. Now, it's not a magic pill and it still takes work, but EFT is both gentle and actually very effective for getting rid of social fear and anxiety. Skeptical? I mean, I was very skeptical at first. Like, yeah, right, you're tapping on your face and body and you're saying certain things, that's going to help. Well, actually, yes. Check out this transformation of one of my clients.
You know, before I would go places, I would think about who might I run into here. Literally, sometimes I would sweat so much that my shirt is drenched, my face is drenched. And at that point, you just can't hide it. I was ashamed of it, and I was really ashamed of it. That's a hard thing for any person to accept about themselves. While I was miserable inside and would come away from a lot of social things exhausted because it was so much work. For so long, what drove me was I can't fail at anything. I cannot fail. People cannot see me fail. And then socially, you know, not just at work and production, but socially, I can't fail. At that time of my life, it was a make or break thing for me. I needed you to like me. Once I got comfortable with myself, I just don't feel that anymore. The tapping calms me. I just felt like a different person, you know? And it was an amazing thing. 2 weeks ago at my father's memorial service, I spoke in front of like 1,200 people, and there was like 4,000 people live streaming this thing. And I did fine, you know? I've now built 5 years of going into a situation now and just being like, I'll be fine. I'll be fine because I'm just going to be myself.
With EFT, you actually do face your fears, but it's the easy way because you use this technique predominantly in the comfort of your own home. So you have a particular situation that you might be scared of, say having a conversation with your boss. And when you think about that particular scenario, you're applying this technique on all the fears and worries and dreads and beliefs that come up until you get to the point where you can visualize it, imagine it, and you feel totally relaxed, comfortable, and at ease. After which, you actually go face that situation in the real world. So now you actually go and talk to your boss. And what you'll then find is that those feelings that have always been there are no longer there. And you actually get a positive social experience, which then confirms that you can handle that now, and it includes that situation in your comfort zone. Now, I'll talk about how I discovered EFT and how I used it with the help of some brilliant practitioners to overcome my own social anxiety and what I learned along the way and what I learned as a coach applying this technique to help my clients overcome their social anxiety in the past 14 years. I'll be sharing that in coming videos. But what I can say to you with total confidence is if you've been suffering from social anxiety, then tapping can be really, really helpful for you. And you can use it to get rid of your social fear and social anxiety completely. It won't happen overnight, but you can get rid of it actually completely. It's amazing. Now, if that's hard to believe, what I recommend is that you actually check out the full testimonial of John. So John had been suffering for social anxiety for the longest time, tried cognitive behavioral therapy, tried facing his fears, worked with an actual therapist. It all didn't work. And he was facial blushing and he dealt with severe anxiety. And what actually happened is super inspiring. And if you hear now where he's at, in the end, he's speeching in front of 100 people and he has no anxiety and he's totally at ease. It's super inspiring. And that will really help you get a feel for what's possible with this technique and what might be possible for you too. So go check it out right now. Here you go.